I have come here today, and before arriving, I took several roads leading anywhere or perhaps leading nowhere at all. Across the streets, there are hard times in the city, and over here, there's really nowhere to turn to, nowhere to look, because every man must know where he stands. Perhaps, maybe because the heart grows weary when it can no longer endure, and nobody knows why. Yet, the sun is out today, and lovers are happy, and somewhere under the sky, the children are playing. But I suppose that they won't play together forever, because time comes for the children to return back home. Some of them, their parents relocate, so they move out of the city. Others, life takes them to places far and wide. But the children do not know this, at least not for now. They expect to see each other tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. But life has its ways of working out, and nobody really and truly stays together forever. At the end of the day, when the dust has finally settled, it is the smiles that I have put on your face. It is the joy that you have planted in my heart. It is the roads that we have both helped each other walk are all that matters. Now, I'm going to talk about life and the sweetness of life, which on a deeper look is a sweet and terrible word, because it has made and it has crumbled the hearts of so many. It has helped others find themselves. It has caused others to lose themselves in the frivolities of life, coming to the crossroad of not knowing what to do or where to turn. This is difficult to say, I know, but I've got to say it some way. I've got to say it somehow. Maybe just to set my soul free, or maybe just to make it known that the world has a way of showing up in places you never thought to look, in moments you never prepared for, and just as suddenly as it comes, it disappears. And just as suddenly as it comes, it disappears before you even know what you had. Now, the question is this: why does life temper with the souls of its inhabitants, knowing without questions that without you and I, there would be no hope, no faith, no resilience, that without you and I, there would be no one left to bear witness, no one left to give thanks for the nurture of life itself. But the world never cares. The world never cares. So it locks us away in dark places, in places so dark that heart begins to faint, places so dark that the heart begins to wither, and slowly a person gets to see that there seems to be no hope. A person sees as clearly as possible that there seems to be no reassurance that the way will ever come. And again, I ask, why are we worn out? Now listen, because this is important. This is exactly how I felt when I met Suzanne. I remember she walked in wearing a purple coat, brown hair flowing down her shoulders. Suzanne had come from a different time. Suzanne had a different story. A smile. It wasn't about beauty. It was about truth. And the truth was that she had seen too much. Suzanne had felt too much. And now slowly and slowly she's beginning to give up on love. Even though the world, which had produced her, bore witness to the light that she carried. I met Suzanne in the park, where I was seated, feeling down and dejected for myself with no one by my side. And as she walked in, she looked at me like a soul trapped in life. But life itself is too beautiful, regardless of how I feel. Life itself, it's still amazing, regardless of where I am in my journey. Suzanne walked around, looking up to the sky. Suzanne walked around, humming a tune to herself, and gently she sat on the empty park bench without saying a word, without asking any questions. And then she talked of life. I remember she said something about her life and how hard it had been for her to be herself in a world that wants her to be someone else. Now Suzanne continued speaking. She talked about her dog, how she fed him daily, how she took him for a walk. She said her dog had silver hair and that he liked to jump so high and that he was always wanting to be happy. Now she smiled just a little. Suzanne smiled just enough until her smile finally disappeared. And then she looked at me with a certain kind of silence. And then she asked, "Why are you unhappy? Why do you worry about who you are and who you long to be?" I looked at her, and I mean Suzanne, wondering why she felt these questions were mine to answer. I sat there, thinking about my life and how in 20 years and more, I am yet to discover who I am in the world and what it means when it rains on me. I sat there, thinking about my life and how in 20 years and more, I am yet to discover who I am and what it means when it rains on me. Then, Suzanne's feet hit the ground like she had someplace else to be. And then she got up, and then she walked towards the gate, and then she left. But within a couple of minutes, she returned again, walking towards where I was seated, and I watched her every move. And she stood in front of me. She said, "When your lover betrays you, when no one calls you on the phone, when no one knocks on your door, when you have no one who believes in you, what do you do?" Suzanne looked at me and said, "When your lover betrays you, when no one calls you on the phone, when no one knocks on your door, when no one believes in you, when you have nothing and you long for nothing, what do you do?" But I'm just a sinner, and a sinner runs everywhere. A sinner runs to the mountain, hoping that the mountain would provide some sort of shield. A sinner runs to the farmhouse, hoping that the redemption of the land would somehow offer some sorts of peace. And yet, despite all of this, I have searched for myself in the places that I have lost myself. And yet, I am yet to discover who I am and what it means when it rains on me. But I have realized this. I have realized this, that the world is the world. The world moves, the world shifts, the world turns on its own accord, indifferent to those who walk upon it. The world is the world for you, and the world is the world for me. And the world has never sought to understand any of us. Those whom the world have chosen to understand are the ones who no longer long for anything. The ones who are broken yet have embraced the broken pieces of themselves. The ones who have known loss and have accepted it. The ones who have made peace with where they stand in the world. These are the ones whom the world have chosen to understand. Listen, your life is your life, and you must endure the pains and the seasons devoid of sweetness. You must come to understand the road that you are walking on, and you must embrace the world wherever it finds you. I can't tell you how, but you've got to find it. You've got to find the strength to be who you want to be. You've got to find the courage to face the world and tell the world what you want. Let me put it personally for a moment. I think it's the safest way really to put it. I watched our life beat a man down to his socks in those quarters I called home. I watched our life beat a man down to his socks in those quarters I called home. I remember the weariness in his face. I saw how he climbed the stairs returning from work. How he sat on his chair, eyes too heavy, mouth unable to move. People would often point out to this man that he was a quiet and gentle man. Neighbors say that he was reserved and gentle in all of his ways. But then, as I began to come of age, I started to see things for what they were. And I noticed that though this particular man was gentle, that though he was quiet, it was perhaps because of the struggles he faced, the courage, the resilience it took him to face the world, day in, day out, year after year, not finding a way to become who he truly wanted to be. Before the world told him who he was, before the world told him what his place in the world is. It's a long road from the four walls of that room, I must say. And now I am an adult. That man had enjoyed his road. He carried it with grace. And now it is my turn to enjoy the road that life has laid before me. A road so vast, a road so full of people, where loneliness so knocks persistently on our doors. A road with long distance opportunities which never comes around our dwelling place. A road where pains are hidden behind smiles, where trust is a long forgotten product. And I think this is why we are worn out. I think that this is why we are worn out. For example, a baby is born with grace. A baby sees the world through the lens of the parents. The baby takes whatever the parent says as the foundation of life. But as the baby comes of age, the world begins to whisper. The world begins to tell the baby that they can't smile so sweetly. that they can't be so kind, except the world view them as being weak. The world keeps talking. It tells the baby to guard itself against those on the roadside, those without hope, those who have been beaten down by life. The world keeps talking. It tells the baby to never become like them. And in that moment, the world starts to change the baby. The world starts to strip away the grace until the very thing that once gave the baby joy becomes the very thing that the baby must hide to survive in the world. Yet, those on the roadside, those with nothing to show, those who had been beaten down by life, were once filled with hopes for their lives, but living in this world, day in, day out, living in this world with all of its demands and expectations, hard beating their soul into surrender. And now, all that surrounds them is the darkness of this world. And in this darkness, they feel as though they've got no choice but to settle in it. They feel as though it is the only refuge which the world had prepared for them. Let me take it back for a moment. Some time ago, I met a man sitting on the street corner, a man without a roof over his head or the embrace of loved ones. And despite the circumstances which surrounds this man, he was the only one who genuinely smiled on that wide street. This man smiled and he called the names of the people as they walked by, wishing them well in their endeavors. I was curious, so I stopped and I said to him, "Excuse me, you seem to be the only one smiling today." And what he said next, I never expected it. This man smiled as if he had lived 1,000 lives. And then he said to me, though I will paraphrase it in my own words, there are people moving all around us, people moving back and forth, carrying the weight of their stories, stories from the past, stories from the years to come. Some have just received good news, some have just discovered betrayals, some have been abandoned by their children, some have just learned that they will soon be parents, some have just landed the job that they so long prayed for. And it goes on and on. One joy and one sorrow, one tragedy and one triumph, all existing at once. And this is what makes up life. Some days of joy and some days of pain, all existing at once. And perhaps, I think, this is why so few people embrace life where it finds them. Why gratitude feels distant, buried beneath the nothingness of life, and the misery that so often clouds it. The times are different, and thoughts may differ, but reality is the same. For the man seated on the throne or the man without a chair, they both soon realize that to face the world, they need some certain sorts of courage. To face the world, they need some certain sorts of knowing who they are. But I wonder, where is Suzanne? Suzanne, where are you? Yet, the articulation of this reality is this. It's much like a traveler who sets out from his town chasing the promise of something new. And before he leaves, he sells his safety, he sells his possessions, and he even sells his past. And then he called upon his neighbors. He told the neighbors that he is leaving and that he's not sure if he will ever return again. He said he will be gone by nightfall, and in 2 days' time, he expects to arrive in the city that holds everything he so longed for. He expects to arrive in the city that holds everything he so longed for. Well, this traveler does not only tell the neighbors that he is leaving, instead, he reminds them of all the ways that town had failed him. How loneliness stretched forth its hands across the hands of the clock. How misery had given birth to misfortune. How forsaken they were, all of them, to remain in that city. Well, the neighbors came together in their self-pity to wish him well, thinking that they were trapped, thinking that life was beautiful on the other side, and that they would never have a taste of it. Well, time went on by and by, like it always does, and this traveler arrives in the new city, the city that had called forth to him in his loneliness, the city that had assured him a place of rest. He had believed in it, as men believed in new beginnings. He had believed in it, as men believed in love. But this traveler, the one who had spoken softly in the dark, the one who had reassured herself to him, took what he had and was gone. And in her absence, there was nothing except the same silence that showed him all along. So he sits beneath a tree, his disappointment settling on him like an old dust. And he wonders, all cities the same. The sorrow and misfortune follows a man no matter where he goes. The pains waits for a man at every pot, at every station, in every unfamiliar streets. He had chased the promise of something new, and yet here he was again. This traveler, like many of us, have failed to understand the truth that eludes us all. And the truth is this, that the ship may sail in any direction, but there is no harbor, there is no destination, where life is not overwhelmed with pains, where the winds do not force us to reckon with ourselves, to look inward in moments of doubt and contemplations. For it is in these very struggles, that we find the essence of living. No matter who we are, where we are, and what we are. Yet, I see it as clearly as possible that the world is ours. The world is for you and the world is for me. But by our own hands have we brought pains upon ourselves. And now I am beginning to suspect that anyone who cannot see how we, the sole inhabitants of this world, have turned our backs on one another, thus becoming architects of our own sufferings, well, they may be incapable of living at all. But like you, my heart is heavy, and I have searched for happiness in strange and distant places. I know what it means to be heartbroken. I know what it means to try so hard and have nothing works out. I know how hard life can beat a man down to his socks, where he becomes a shadow of himself, and he simply endures. accepting of whatever comes, knowing deep in his heart that he may never find some sort of happiness in the world, knowing deep in his heart that he may never find some sort of peace in the world. What I'm trying to say is this: you remember how it was. You remember when your soul was full of love, of dreams, of hopes, before the world told you it was all for nothing. You remember when your hearts overflowed with joy, with the fullness of the Spirit, with excitement, with compassion, with kindness, with grace, before the weight of the world told you it was all for nothing. But I suppose we all know the drill. I suppose we all know the drill. You look at the clock, and it's 12 noon on the clock of your life. Because you've lived through your childhood, through the restless years of being a teenager, through the trials of being a young adult, and now you are an adult. You look at the calendar and you almost forget your age and the year you were born. So you sit back and you look at the pictures and you wonder what is happening to you and what has happened to them. You look at the pictures and you wonder what has become of you and what is becoming of them. Because in this moment, nothing seems to make sense in the world. And it seems as though we're trapped in a race, striving to love, striving to provide, striving to survive, and worst of all, striving to simply be ourselves in a world that wants us to be someone else. But you must know, as you move forward, you must know and you must carry this with you, that life shall pass. Life passed for some yesterday. Life is passing for others today. And in the midst of all the silence which surrounds us all, do not forget to truly live, to find the pieces of yourself that you have let slip away, to gather them up, to burn your fire and let it burn bright. Life shall pass. The sky clears after the storm. The winter recedes and makes way for summer. The children grow old and the old rest in peace. Life shall pass. But this moment stands as a testament for you and for me that we were once here and that we walked on the surface of this earth no matter how difficult it was, and that we lived through it. And yet, despite all of this, the world does not care how Suzanne feels. The world rushes upon her with all of its sadness and sorrows and happy days. And somewhere on the road of her life, she learns to pick a battle. She learns to choose the battle to fight and the ones to walk away from. Baby, the blues is sad, I know. Your heart is heavy, I know. You've got no love and you've given out no love, I understand. No one knocks on your door, no one calls you on the phone, I feel you. Find your reasons. You must find the strength to hold on when days are long and hard. You must find the courage to meet the world wherever it meets you. And again, I can't tell you how, but you've got to find it. You've got to find the strength to be who you want to be. Because somewhere between yesterday and today, We've lost the joy that once held us together. And now, all that surrounds us is the beats which rings in the depths of our heart. And this beat holds the way forward for you and for me. And we must bring ourselves. We must stand upon the realization. We must embrace the world. Baby, the road is hard. I know. Your heart is filled with pains. I know. The days are long and hard. I know. You've got no love and you've given out no love. I know. But you've got to find your reasons. You must find your reasons, baby. For it is your grace and my grace that's gonna help us walk from this desolation with us formed over our lives. Find your reasons, baby. Find your reasons.